you've got a very short window to try and be credible with an individual, and you can't be credible if you're not picking up the phone and trying to start that relationship, because that's ultimately where it starts, and then it develops and it evolves.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Recruitment Podcast by Recruit CRM. I'm Kate O'Neill, your host, and I'm here to bring you more conversations with the best minds in the recruitment industry. So get ready, because again today we're going to be diving deep into a really interesting conversation. Everything's recruitment related, and it's going to bring lots and lots of value to the work that you do. So I'm going to now introduce today's guest. I've got Max Learmonth. We're going to be talking about one of my favourite subjects, something that I'm super passionate about and I believe is essential to any recruitment business development. So that is what we're going to be talking about today.
Thank you very much for having me on. Very honoured and privileged to be here, and thank you for the kind intro. I think the only additional bits I'd say is been in the industry for 13 years, as you kindly pointed out. I've worked in a large corporate business for 7 of those, so I've seen that side of the recruitment industry. I then joined a small to medium-sized business and went on a leadership journey of my own in that regard to become a well-rounded leader. And 18 months ago, decided to set out Forge Talent, having that ethos and DNA of everything we do is about relationships, being that true talent partner and not just trying to make a quick bit of cash. So that's how we started the business, and from that we've grown from me to a team of 8 come January. And yeah, we've helped a lot of people into new roles over the last 18 months.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love the growth you've had, and I think I'm quite similar to you. I've had that experience of kind of a small agency, different size agencies, and you see and experience different things, don't you? And it really shapes then what you end up becoming in your own business. So no, I can totally relate to that. So for me, business development is the life. I know we obviously need candidates, right? But business development is the lifeline of any recruitment agency. Without the clients, we've got nowhere to put those candidates. And they pay our bills, let's be honest with you. So that's also very important. So for me, BD drives growth. It's about connecting us as agencies with the right clients and building lasting partnerships. So in this episode, what I'm going to do with Max is delve into things like what is business development, how to win new business, practical tips, proven strategies, ways to strengthen those relationships, and basically stay ahead in the recruitment industry, which, as we all know, is rapidly evolving. It's an evolving ecosystem almost. So just to start, Max, what is BD to you?
Big question. BD to me is being a 360 recruitment consultant. And what does that mean? It's full end to end, right? It's the cradle to grave in terms of recruitment. And the role of a recruitment consultant is to be the broker. So you have to take your asset, which is your candidate, and you have to take that asset to market and go and identify an opportunity for that candidate, that being the client. And you've then got to go through the whole process to place that individual in a role. So for me, is business development is outbound activity. It's not filling jobs, it's creating opportunities for your asset.
Yeah, and I like the word you said, outbound activity then as well, because I think the marketing side of the personal brand side of recruitment is very important, and it links with your business development, but that is not, to me anyway, to me business development is reaching out, like you said, creating opportunity. So I think it's interesting to get different people's perspectives, but for anybody listening to have that sort of definition as well is really helpful. So from your experience, and especially now you've got your own business, because the business itself is going to have a strategy, what for you are the key components of a really successful business development strategy for agencies in general?
Yeah, and I think the last 18 months has been like a real evolution of that as well for us. because I hadn't been effectively on the tools since 2017. So all of a sudden it was, I've got a mortgage to pay. I've employed two people from the get-go. We've got mortgages to pay. So it's been an evolution, but I think ultimately it starts and stops with the phone. And there's going to be a load of people that don't like me saying that, but it does. So you've got to be able to use the phone, and the strategy has to start with planning. You have to know who you're calling and why, and that comes through market mapping, talent identification. You've got to do all that the night before, and then you've got to get on the tools. So you've got to jump on the phone. You've got to try and connect with these individuals through the phone. If you can't do that, you're sending connection requests, you're sending follow-ups. But it's got to start and stop with the phone. Like, that has to be your client acquisition strategy, because how many emails have you already had this morning that you've already ignored or you've already deleted? Because I know I've had about 10 or 11 myself.
Pretty similar for me.
So it's like, for me, like, you've got a very short window to try and be credible with an individual, and you can't be credible if you're not picking up the phone and trying to start that relationship, because that's ultimately where it starts, and then it develops and it evolves.
Yeah, I think, like, I'm on the same mindset as you, and it really frustrates me on LinkedIn or whatever platform, seeing people talking about, well, if people don't, the new generation, if they don't like the phone, we shouldn't make them do it. And it's like, hold on a minute, this is a job where you need to build relationships.
Yep.
And I don't know if you've realised, but you actually have to speak to people to build a relationship. So if you don't like speaking to people, don't do this job, because that is what you need to do. And as I do a lot of business development, and I might initially engage with somebody on LinkedIn, but I'm always trying to get them on the phone or always trying to get a meeting. Because you can't just build a relationship like pen pals going back and forth on email and LinkedIn message. So I'm the same as you. That phone or face-to-face meetings, as well, is so important. So I'm with you on that in terms of strategy, and the prep is really important, like you said. You talked there about talent mapping, sort of identifying decent targets to go after. How do you think agencies can sort of identify? What advice would you give around identifying those target clients? Because it's a crowded marketplace, isn't it? So what would be your tips around that?
I think, you are right. It's crowded, it's saturated, whatever term you want to use, like it is. But ultimately, going back to the asset, okay, your candidates are the eyes and ears in the marketplace. They tell you what's going on. They're telling you about opportunities that they may have been interested in, they're now not. They tell you what other agencies are talking to you about. So a lot of what we have done has been around competitor analysis. It's, where are some of the larger corporates working with businesses? Where are some of our boutique competitors working with agencies? Where are they placing people? We're not then jumping on that and trying to follow up straight away, but we know that those hiring managers have spent money with an agency. So it would be very, very stupid of us to then not try and start a relationship with those people. And that starts with a phone call. It's then a face-to-face. We're big on face-to-face interaction because, can't shake somebody's hand over email. So it's about establishing that foundation. So large part of it, going back to the asset, has been through the eyes and ears that way. Clearly, we utilize our tech stack. I'm not going to say different names because we're on somebody's podcast, but we utilize our tech stack effectively to look at different insights, what businesses have been hiring, and what's been where the growth engines have been on different parts of our tech stack. We've also been doing quite a lot in terms of a networking point of view within the world of private equity. So clearly, when private equity are excited about opportunities that are coming up, it's normally a good indicator for us. So we're trying to embed ourselves in different pockets of the community to really help fast forward our growth.
Yeah, and I like that word you used there, community, because it's the same with candidates as well, isn't it? But why should it be any different on the client side? That's what we need to be creating, is these pockets or these communities that we can then integrate with and be a part of.
I think it is. It's massive. And I think for me, community is big. I think people look at clients and they look at candidates and they view them in very, very different ways. they put clients on this pedestal because they're ultimately people paying a fee. I view everybody as a customer, like absolutely everybody. And I will treat a candidate the exact same way that I'll treat a client. At some point, that candidate's going to be a potential client, potential hiring manager, but I just want to have impact. Like, I want to add value to every interaction that I can have. Doesn't mean I'm going to be able to place everybody in a job. Like, hell, I can't do that. But I can add value and I can have impact, and they can remember me.
Yeah. And even I remember, well, I still get it happen now, but it's even like with, like, say, the candidates you never placed, but they remember that experience. When they do turn into a client, they still come to you. It's those sort of experiences you want to give people, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that kind of we've already touched on it already, but that really does hone into the relationship building side of things. So for you, what role does relationship building play in business development, and how can recruiters sort of strengthen that over time?
Yeah, I think everything in recruitment has to come down to relationships, or it does for me anyway. If I'm serious about wanting to grow and scale this business, I need to have relationships. I need to have partnerships with businesses that are going to continue to use me, and candidates that are going to continue to want to work with me. So I think the foundation, like it has to be that. Everything that you do, all of your energy, your enthusiasm has to go into building partnerships with these individuals. So it's massive, like absolutely massive. But I think starts with the planning. It's then the phone. It's then to get in front of people from a face-to-face point of view. And we as a business are doing a lot of that every single week. I don't think there'll be another recruitment business in the UK at the moment that are doing as many face-to-face interactions as we are a week.
Yeah. And it's, for me, like with business development, it's getting these people to like you, to know you, to trust you. And if you want to do that quicker, because if we're trying to create a partnership, and this is the difference between transactional and strategic recruitment. Transactional is things like, I'm going to ring about this job and try and pick it up and work it. Yeah. Whereas, as you said, I think with the last question, it's about trying to start the relationship, start the partnership. Now, you might not pick a role up with them for 6 months, but if you're chipping away and building up and getting them to like you, to know you, to trust you more and more and more, you're much more likely to get a role exclusive. You're much more likely to be the first person to get it. You're going to be that on the, I'm going to give them that. I'm going to, and it's long-term partnership, so it's so important.
Like it's got to be. And I think you've got to treat every call like a discovery call. Like that first call is discovery. And ultimately for me, you're trying to understand like what goes on in the business, what they like about recruiters, what they don't like about recruiters, because they'll typically tell you that anyway. But what's going on within the team? What's the dynamic? Are there any flight risks? You're trying to gather as much information as possible, ultimately trying to identify where a pain point could emerge. Might not be one right now today, but I want to then use that, and then in my face-to-face meeting to be, if something like that does happen, I have the solution. So it's all about credibility and honesty and trust.
Yeah. And providing, I think sometimes where people go wrong, and I do a lot of kind of call coaching with consultants, is they're trying to pitch a solution before they know the pain points and the problems.
Exactly.
And it's like, but then you're going to they're getting these no's, and they're pushing people away because they don't feel heard and understood.
Yeah.
There's no show of, I care and I'm trying to help you. It's more, what's in it for me? I'm just going to put in front of you what I need. And people don't want that anymore.
No, they don't. And don't get me wrong, like I lead, like my first call, it's typically always called, I lead with my asset. I lead with a candidate that I think could be relevant within their business, albeit I don't know much about the business, but I've done a bit of research. I lead with that because I'm trying to create that candidate or my asset an opportunity. Then I go in if that candidate's right or not. And more often than not, there's not anything in that business. It's then I go into the discovery. Then I understand the pain point. Then I'm trying to showcase a bit of credibility. Conversation, even if it hasn't flowed that well, it's like, let's meet for a face-to-face. And then if you don't then want to use me, you never have to talk to me again.
We haven't touched on tools yet or technologies. And I know now in this day and age that we're in, that is part of what we do. You talked about tech stack earlier. So just interested to find out what tools or technologies you recommend for streamlining business development processes in particular.
Yeah, so similar to everything that we've just spoken about, and people are going to think everything I'm talking about is so simple. Like we have kept it simple, like we have, because I am not an expert in technology in any way, shape, or form. At some point in the future, I'm going to have to bring somebody on board that is. But I wanted to keep it really simple to start off with. So we've got our CRM that, again, I'm not an expert in, but I'm lucky that I've got two individuals in the business who are bloody brilliant with it. Clearly, we've got LinkedIn Recruiter, and it's like the crack cocaine of recruitment, like it is. And that has been brilliant for us in terms of market mapping, talent insights, talent identification, but also as a business development strategy. Like it's been great to identify people that we might never have heard of before. And then we've got the usual tools that people talk about, like Lusher, for data. So it's literally three things. And
very similar to me.
It's really simple, and I think with the size of the business that we are at right now today, I don't think we need anything else. That will evolve over time, like of course it will, but that served us pretty well with where we're at today.
Yeah, I'm very similar to you. So I use Lusher, I use Apollo.io as well. That's really good for like data. LinkedIn, I mean, I don't think there's been a day in the last 12 years, that's quite sad really, that I haven't been on LinkedIn. Like it is like open constantly on a work day as well. So yeah, LinkedIn's massive for me. I've got I don't think I've got LinkedIn Recruiter, but I've got LinkedIn Premium. So yeah, that is a massive help for BD. And then obviously I've got my CRM. And I mean, that leads me really nicely into actually talking about Recruit CRM. As I've mentioned to you on the other episodes, I actually use Recruit CRM myself in my business. I've got two businesses. I've got an agency. I've got a coaching business. Now, I've actually transitioned even my BD from my coaching business onto Recruit CRM because it's so much easier and effective than the other tool that I was using for that. So for me, with my business development, what I love is how it's made everything a lot quicker and easier for me. So for example, say I'm doing my BD prep and I'm on a client's profile on LinkedIn, I can literally download the Recruit CRM extension, click a button, and it transfers all their information and data onto Recruit CRM for me. So I haven't got to add the client, add the company. It does all of it for me and grabs the data from LinkedIn, which saves me so much time. I can set tasks really easily, send emails really easily, log call notes really easily. It just makes everything so much quicker and easier for me, and gives me really good insights and analytics as well, which with BD as well I find really interesting. So yeah, it's a tool that is definitely, if you're thinking about BD as a priority, which it should be, it really harnesses that and helps kind of boost your outreach overall. So coming back to the questions then. So when we're thinking about, I know you've talked about kind of for you, when you go into a client initial discovery call, you'll do things like use a candidate, for example. Can you share some examples of any other sort of innovative approaches you've used when standing to help yourself stand out and pitching to clients, or you've seen anyone else use that you think is really good?
Yeah, I think a couple of things that we've used. We've been at a few like decent networking events this year. Where one recently was a private equity networking event just this week, and when we've been picking up the phone to potential customers, it's been to talk about the economic outlook in the private equity world. So that's been one thing that we've used. Things going on in the press. Clearly, the budget has been a big one that we've been discussing with potential customers. How is it going to impact them? What's it going to mean from creating efficiencies? What are they going to mean from a headcount point of view? NI, with threshold being dropped. So I suppose it's more been through market intel. We've then used that as another way to have intelligent conversations, because if you just pick up the phone and go, can I please have your jobs?
They're so fed up of it.
So fed up of it. And do you know what? I think with some of the industry, I actually don't think it's the individual's fault that are doing that, by the way. I just think they're having terrible training, and they've got leadership that are just we need jobs, we need you to send CVs out, spam, 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 spam.
Yeah.
Like that is transactional. So for me, everything is about credibility. And yes, it starts with a cold call. It starts with taking our asset to market, but then it flows, that discovery. It's finding the pain points. It's talking about events we've been to. It's talking about things that are going on in the marketplace. Have you seen this merger and acquisition? Are you looking to fundraise? It's having proper business conversations, that things that may or may not impact them over the next 12 months.
Yeah. And I think I say this to a lot of people that are trainers. You've got to speak their language. They are not recruiters. So when you're ringing them and being like, do you need any candidates? Have you got any jobs? You know, all the lingo that we use, and also just talking straight off about recruitment, that's not their world. That's not their language. They are hiring managers, but the recruitment part of their job is a small percentage of what they do. So, like you've mentioned, talk their language, be part of their world. Talk about the news that's going on in the market. Talk about, like you said, an event or something recent that affects them in the news, because that's what they're talking about every day. And that, ask them about, like, what are your plans for the next 3 months for the business? Talking, have, like you said, business conversations, not, do you need, can you give me anything as in a job, or do you need a candidate? They're not interested. Like, you can lead to that. You can segue into that later in the conversation if you want to, but they're going to be much more receptive of it if you've navigated the conversation around their world first.
Yeah. Like when I then think about like how our sort of conversations flow, and everybody's got their own spin on it, by the way. I'm not saying what Max says goes. It's far from it. Like everybody has their own spin on things. But we go through a similar sort of structure. And you're right. It's like asking questions around why. Like everything that we've just spoken about, it's so why will that impact you? What does that mean for you personally? It's everything I try and do is to talk about, apart from the initial, here's my asset, I try and talk about them for as long as possible. And then when I get towards the back end of the conversation, it's, well, look, I've really enjoyed the conversation today. I hope you have as well. Look, why don't we grab some time over the next 2 weeks so I can get more of a deeper understanding, so that when you need to recruit, at least you know I'm not a complete tool. Like that is genuinely how I phrase it. And look, it's not, I don't get 10 out of 10 people going, oh yeah, Max, you sound great. Like, of course I don't. It's sales, it's recruitment, and we do have a bad rep. But I get a high percentage of converting people into a face-to-face. And then when I get a face-to-face, it's just another chance to show credibility.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was, obviously we've seen a massive shift, haven't we, in people being only ever based in the office, and we've had it in our recruitment world, haven't we, to being a lot more fully remote or hybrid. So how have you seen that shift towards sort of like digital transformation, remote working, impact sort of the business development side of things for you?
Really interesting question. I actually, from a BD point of view, I don't think it's affected a huge amount. So look, we are in the office 3 days a week. We are, and it's all around collaboration, knowledge transfer, all that good stuff. And you learn through osmosis, and you learn through being around people. Now, I've not brought anybody in who's a true trainee yet. So I do think that when we look to bring in trainees, and I've spoken to you about it already, at some point next year, I do think there might need to be an adjustment for a period of time. Certainly from my point of view, where I need to be in the office more with a new starter, because I want to tee people up to be successful. But I can see how that will impact potential business development. If I was to bring in a trainee and say it's 3 days a week from the get-go, because when they're at home, you don't know what you don't know. So I could see it potentially impacting it then. And I've got friends who own recruitment businesses, who are leaders in other recruitment businesses, and they have found it a challenge. They have, when they've brought on trainees and they've been in a remote working model, because it's really, really difficult when you're trying to be doing your business development and you get a knockback and you've not got somebody next to you to help G you up, or you're really, really struggling and you just, nobody's picking up the phone. It's easy to get distracted and be busy by other things. So I think I'm fortunate where I've got, in January, 8 experienced recruiters. So I've not had those challenges yet. but I can already see them in the future, like without a doubt.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's when you're new, it's not, it's just like you mentioned, the support. It's just to know that if you do have a bad call, or I don't know, you send a message on LinkedIn and you get a bit of a RC response, you've got somebody next to you, you can just have a little bit of a vent about it or get some support. The other thing is, and I've worked remotely for 10 years, and as a recruiter when I was employed for 6.5, 7, and I knew I always had the support around me, but sometimes you can't get hold of people when you work remotely. Like, some people, we're on the phone, well, we should be on the phone a lot as recruiters. Yeah. Not all your colleagues are going to be free all the time. So you have got that, when you're very, very new, that can make things challenging. I don't know whether you found this, but I know some of the kind of techie agencies that I know in the UK, they found the change from office to remote and hybrid meant that actually it was harder to get hold of their hiring managers because they weren't in the office all the time.
Yeah.
So that meant they had to be even better at getting things like mobile numbers. And when you do the right prep and you're doing the right research, there are ways around it. We know that. But again, without the right training and being told, they were finding they were just getting blocked because gatekeepers, receptionists, whatever you want to call them, were like, they're not based from here anymore. We're not giving out mobile numbers.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a challenge.
So that's where you've got to, as you've just said, utilize your tech stack, utilize things like Lusher or Apollo, all these sorts of things to try and get information. But also, it's all well and good signing up to a free credit that you get per month. But if your business isn't willing to put the hand in the pocket and say, well, everybody's got one of these licenses, it becomes really challenging for that person again. So it comes back to teeing your people up to be successful. The business has to do that. That starts and stops with the leadership and management, and they've got to help people. We've got to put people on the best footing possible. And sometimes, well, no, more often than not in the industry, that's not the case.
Yeah, no, and things do need to change. And I think BD is not easy. That is, if it was easy, there'd be loads of people doing recruitment at the end of the day. It's not that. I enjoy business development because it's challenging, but I think agency owners, leaders have got a responsibility to make business development as easy as it can be for their consultants. And that comes into providing the right training and support, as you mentioned, giving them the right tools, tech stack that they need to execute and do that outreach properly and in the best way possible. Because even then, it's not easy, but it can be made easier by doing those things. And a lot of them are low cost. They're not extortionate, expensive things. Okay, so we have come to the end. We've run out of time. That went so fast. I want to thank you, Max, for coming on today. It's been a really valuable conversation. I think anyone listening, however experienced you are, can take a lot from the insights that you've given today. And ultimately, I think what we can all take from it is, and we've mentioned this a few times, is there's no need to overcomplicate your business development. There's simple steps you can take. You don't need to overcomplicate even the tech stack. It's about doing your outreach in a way where you're focusing on relationships, putting your clients first, and getting in front of them, getting conversations. That's really, really important. So thank you for sticking with us to the end of the episode, if you're still listening. If you found this helpful, which I'm sure you have, I'd really encourage you to connect with both me and Max on LinkedIn. Both our profile links are in the description of this podcast. So give us both a follow. We both share great insights and more learned, not just around business development, but everything recruitment related. You can visit my websites if you want to for my agency and my coaching business. They are both in the descriptions as well. If you are interested in learning more about Recruit CRM, there's links in the description, but you can also visit the website, which is just recruitcrm.io. You can get things like free demos on there as well, which I would encourage you to do. But thank you all for tuning in to the Recruitment Podcast. A big, massive thanks again to you, Max. Don't miss our next episode. I've got another great guest on with me. I've got Matt Kirk, and we are going to be talking about how you can truly be different and stand out as a recruiter. So I will see you all in the next episode.